Hello everybody, Janet Urban here, founder of Friends in Film. Welcome to our podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to give you insights that you will not learn anywhere, not in film school, not online, not from anybody, even people on film sets will not know what I'm teaching you because we have studied how to go very fast into the film industry and create a career out of it. And that is what this podcast is about, and that is what the A-List program is about, which is our main flagship program that all these people all over the world are doing to work in the film industry. So enjoy today's podcast, and thank you so much for listening. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how does a writer's strike impact you getting into the film industry? The answer is it doesn't impact you getting into the film industry, but it does impact your career long term. It impacts all of our careers long term because it is labor negotiating with the studios. And labor is everybody on the film sets, from the showrunners to the cinematographers to the directors to the writers to those are above the line, and then below the line it's everybody. It's the production designers, it's the sound mixers, it's the hair and the makeup and the costume design, everybody that's found on a film set. So every single job on a film set has a union. Craft service, the Teamsters, obviously, that's transportation, locations. Of course, Local 600 is the camera union. 695 is a sound union. There's our 44 is the art union. So there's all these unions, okay? And these unions are basically laying down the ground rules and the minimum rates for a 10-hour day, what the overtime is for a 12-hour day, what the overtime is for a 14-hour day, and making sure that there's proper turnaround. So when you end, if say you leave the set at 10 p.m., then you have to have a proper turnaround time so you get enough sleep, and then when you start your day. And if you start before that time, then you're going to get compensated extra for it. So these are all the things that the unions negotiate with the production companies and with the studios so that there are safe sets, so that people are well compensated for, so that everybody gets fed on time. They can't go for 10 hours without feeding people. But all of these rules are rules that these companies that are doing these big projects, when they sign with the union, now they have to adhere to these rules. They are companies, they are studios that are signatories that have signed with these unions to abide by these union contracts. And so that the benefit that they have is that they're working with very skilled people that have negotiated and created a union. Unions have been around a very long time. And so there is the IATSE, there is the sound, like all the unions I mentioned. There's also the WGA, that's a union, and SAG is a union, and Writers Guild. WGA is Writers Guild. There's also the Directors Guild, the DGA, and then there's SAG, Screen Actors Guild. And then there's all the other unions. So we care very much that all of these people, from the writers to the actors to the Teamsters to the cinematographers, we care that all of them negotiate the best contract that they can have so that our industry remains to be a well-paid industry that keeps people safe, that tries to do it right, has guidelines for harassment and discrimination and proper rest and safety, all of these things. These are very important negotiations. It is for the health of our industry that we have unions, and it's for the health of the industry that strikes occur because there's a contract, and that's what these companies are adhering to. And they want to pay the least, and they want to have the least amount of rules to apply to them because the more that they have rules that apply to them when they're shooting, the more money that it costs them, basically. Just more money to adhere to all of these rules. So, and of course they want to pay the least amount. They don't want to keep having the rates continue to increase across the board for all these positions on film sets. But on the other side of it is all of the people that make these films. I mean, that's you and me. That's the writers. That's the directors. That's the showrunners. You would think that the showrunners are with the studios. No, the showrunners are artists just like you and me. They're artists that are telling a story, that have got a concept for a story, written a script, worked with other professionals, and are bringing that story out there into the world with the studios, with Netflix. Netflix is the studios, Amazon's the studios, Disney's the studios, Marvel, these are the studios. And then we've got all these production companies and artists and showrunners that are creating content, that are making the content that then these studios put out there. So the studios are the financiers. They're the ones that are gathering all the eyeballs to watch the stuff. They're putting the money out. So we're not going to, discount what the importance of them. They are distributing it, they're getting it out there, and they're marketing it, and they're taking the risk. And then you've got all these production companies and all of these people that work on film sets, and we are pretty much the labor. We are the artists. And showrunners are included in the labor. They are the artists coming up with these ideas. Directors are also, you could call them the labor. Everybody's all working for somebody. But the labor wants to get as much money as we can so that we can have nice lives, and also so that we can create great content, great films for the world. Because it is the artists that are creating these films for the studios, and they got to be good. And they got to tell a story, and they need good production design, and they need writers on set so that the dialogue, the script can be adjusted when needed on set. They need this. They need money to be able to make their amazing projects. So you as a filmmaker, you want as much money to be allocated to these film sets so that you can create your amazing art, and it's always going to be this way, and you're on that side. Now, if you're on the studio side, then you're going to want to pay least amount of money and get something out there that makes a ton of money. Like they are taking the risk and then buying all of these completed shows and putting them out there, and hopefully they're making a lot of money from them. I'm sure there's some that are losers and there's some that are massive winners, but they want to pay the least. Any business wants to pay the least. Now, if you're like, wow, well, maybe I should go work for the studios. Well, if you want to go work for the studios, just realize that you are working in a 9-to-5 then. And that's not working on set, creating and telling stories. That is distribution, that's marketing, that's a 9-to-5 office job. And if that is what you want to do, then great, go work for the studios. But if you are a creative, an artist that wants to work on film sets as a showrunner, as a director, as a cinematographer, as a producer, then you're going to want to work on film sets and do those jobs. Okay, so the writers' strike, the DGA strike, the SAG strike, those haven't striked yet, but they can. And a lot of that is going to determine what happens with the writers' strike. So we're hoping, everybody's hoping, we're all hoping for the writers too, even though we're not writers. We want them to have the best deal possible, because the more strength that they have and the best deal that they're able to negotiate, then the other unions can also negotiate strongly. Writers want to have residuals. That's because writers are they're kind of like gig-based. They're working on a show. And they want to be able to get residuals to take them through that amount of time. They've written the work. They've done great work. They've put their heart and soul into it. They should get residuals. Actors should get residuals. But all of that they want to avoid because the studios want to make money. Now, I would never say, oh, they're greedy, money-hungry people. It's business. It's just business. It's just the negotiation that has to occur for healthy business. So these strikes are the negotiation that has to occur for healthy business. And neither side is bad. Neither side is greedy or whatever. I don't think. I choose not to look at it that way. I choose to look at it as this is business. So I am hoping that they can stay strong enough to be able to get what they need. So how it does not impact you, the strikes are for the union contract. And when you are working on union film sets, then it impacts you. But when you're starting off, you're not working on union film sets yet. You're going to be working on non-union film sets where there is no union contract and you are working on something that is non-union. That also means that there's no rules that have to apply, although most non-union film sets abide by a lot of the rules that are already established on these union contracts because they're good people and they want to do it right. but they don't have to abide by them. Like they don't have to break after 6 hours and feed everybody lunch. They don't have to even pay for everybody to have lunch. They can say it's a walk away and go get your own lunch. But a lot of times they do provide that, and they do break on time, and they do work for a good turnaround time, and they do abide by the safety rules. Okay, so non-union sets is where you're going to start anyway. That's where you're going to start whether there was a strike or not. And lucky for you and lucky for the world, non-union sets are everywhere. In fact, probably 80% of the film industry is non-union film sets. So that's where you're going to start anyway. You just probably never thought about it like, well, what kind of shoots am I going to be on? They're going to be non-union. I mean, when I started, like National Geographic, that was non-union. Discovery Channel is all non-union. All the interviews that I did was non-union. All the press junkets were non-union shoots. All of the behind the scenes actually was non-union shoots. The promotions that I worked on when I started for the first 2.5 years, I did a lot of that kind of work. And I was making anywhere from $300 to $650 per day. Okay, so all non-union. And then I broke into commercials, and that was some non-union commercials, but then a lot of union commercials. And I got qualified to join the union by working on non-union shoots. So that's how everybody gets qualified to join the union. And then once you join the union, then you're very interested in these union contracts being negotiated. So yes, you're going to be able to start in your career even during the strike because the majority of your work is going to be non-union anyway. So non-union sets are going to be very valuable for you because you're able to work in the craft immediately. And I have a strategy that I teach inside my programs where you get on these sets and then you move quickly into the craft that you want to do. Could be camera operating, could be DPing, could be assistant camera, could be art department like set dressing or art directing. So you're going to learn a craft on set by working on non-union sets. That's how you're going to learn a craft. And you cannot do a craft on a union set if you're not in the union. All right, so this could be a little confusing if you have never heard this before, or maybe it's not for you. But non-union sets, there's no rules. So you can get on a set as a production assistant. You can start working in the camera department the next day. On a union set, you can get on that set as a production assistant, but you cannot work in the camera department because it's a union set and you have to be in the union, in the camera union, to work in the camera department. So you can't move up on a union set into a craft. But on a non-union set, you can move up into a craft and work as much as you want in that craft. There are no rules. So that's why in my programs, we use non-union sets to get experience and to get qualified for the union and to get good and to deal with all of the problems and the mistakes and the challenges of telling a story through shooting on set, all of the things that make the craft so fun and interesting and exciting and a pleasure to do. So every craft has got, they've got a lot of details to be able to do that craft very well, from art department to hair to makeup to sound to camera to lighting. So just know that when you go on union sets, you have to be in the union to be able to work in that craft. Where are you going to be able to get the qualifications to be able to do those jobs on union sets? The non-union world. Non-union shoots is where you're going to get your experience and your qualifications. It is still good to get in the film industry. You're going to be working on non-union sets for a couple of years anyway, but we still care very much about the writers' strike and that they negotiate a good contract. And we want all the other unions to also negotiate really good contracts because in the future, you're going to be in a union and you're going to want as strong of a contract as you can, as high of a rate as there is for yourself. And it is the health of the industry that we have good union contracts. Now, the flip side of this is the stronger that our unions get, the more unionized we get in different cities around the country, the more that production, that the studios can say, okay, well, we're just going to bypass all of these very expensive unions and we're going to go shoot Mexico. We're going to go shoot in Romania. They can leave London and just say, well, it's a lot cheaper. We can get like a whole nother movie made in Bulgaria if we just go shoot there, and then we don't have to deal with the unions. Now, that doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that they are filmmakers. They are people that are funding it, are saying that, hey, this is where we have to shoot if we want to get this project made. And then a lot of people will say, oh man, I really don't want to do that. But for my own career, if I can actually get this project made for my own career, yeah, I'm going to go shoot it over in Bulgaria. And I know it's going to be a pain in the ass, and maybe it's not going to turn out perfectly. It wouldn't be as good as if we could shoot in the United States, but we can get it done for half as much. Or it won't be as good as if we shot it in London, but I can get it done, and it will impact my career, and I can get going with my career. So that's why decisions are made. And so if the contracts get to be too high and it's too expensive, then they're just going to start shooting in other places. And the world is a very big place. So I want you to understand the whole picture. So if that's like a little bit of a bum out for you, then just realize that that's the way the world is. It's not just the film industry. Like, there is change happening in industries all over the place. I know the first thing that comes to mind is artificial intelligence. And yes, it's going to impact in unknown ways every single industry in the entire world. So change is coming. Change has always been happening. And so we still do not know all of the impact of artificial intelligence, but there's going to be impact in every single industry. So you might as well go after what you want to do in the film industry. So yeah, you can't predict how is it going to impact all the jobs in the banking industry or Wall Street or selling stuff on Amazon. We don't know yet. So you might as well go for what you want to do. It's always been my philosophy is, we just really, whatever you do, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of work. It's never going to be easy. It's never going to be not frustrating or difficult or challenging. It's always, whatever you do, it's always going to be all of those things. And maybe that is just the human experience, so it's perfectly fine. So where am I going to bring my willingness to push through all of the negative stuff and the negative emotions? It's going to be where it's worth it for me, where it's also exciting and exhilarating, and where I feel like I'm doing something that matters in the world. So that like balances out all of the uncertainty and frustration and figuring out of all the problems that I have to figure out in order to live this amazing life in the film industry. So if you are passionate about it and you love film and you love telling stories, you're going to find a place for yourself. You are going to find the answers as you go along this pathway. And you're going to probably be shifting. What you initially thought that you'd be doing, maybe you'll be doing something slightly differently because the entire department changes and how they do things is differently. But if you are obsessed with it and you love it, then you're going to be right there and be able to make that change and continue to work. I think it's helpful for you to know that there is a lot of work out there, like creating content, creating films, creating commercials, creating music videos, news. I mean, just everything out there. That's like so attached to money because that's where the eyeballs go. So that kind of work is never going to go away. It's just going to slightly change and shift, and the jobs within required to make that stuff is going to change and shift, and we can count on that. But if we're in it, and we're several years in it, when the changes really start to take place with artificial intelligence, for example, then you'll already be in it and already be with your group of knowledge and people and expertise and be able to shift with it. And that's going to be the case in all industries anyway. So you might as well be in the film industry. So I think that one of the most important things is for you to just decide, hey, I'm all in. Like, don't try to time when should I get into the film industry. And it would be ridiculous to wait until the strikes are over because there'll be more strikes happening. There's always going to be strikes. I remember the last writer's strike. And it did impact the industry in Los Angeles. A lot of people started shooting in Vancouver and Toronto then. And then those markets became developed. So Toronto and Vancouver were not even developed markets until the writer's strike. Then everybody's like, well, we can't shoot it here, so let's go up to Vancouver. And initially it was like, okay, they've got no equipment up there. They got no camera houses. They don't have all the stuff. but they quickly built it. So now they have it. So now it's spread out a little bit more. It forever impacted the industry in Los Angeles because all the work got spread around. Now they can shoot in Toronto and get a really good project, and they got plenty of people up there. Same thing with Toronto, same thing with London, same thing with shooting in Atlanta. They started moving to Atlanta, started going to Texas, a right-to-work state, so they can get stuff done less there. So this is just the industry. It's the ebb and flow of the industry. But the main message, since you probably were not aware, that the writer's strike, it's good, it's necessary for the health of the industry. It's good for you in the future because you want the unions to be able to negotiate the best contract that they can, because someday you're going to be union, and you don't have to worry about this right now, because just get into the business and get going and focus on your own learning, because you're mostly going to be working on non-union shoots anyway for your first couple of years, and using those shoots to get qualified to join the union that goes with the job that you end up doing, or the jobs that you end up doing. You might be a member of several unions by the time it's all said and done. I hope this has helped you. Please let me know. Send me an email if this has helped you clarify things in your mind and decrease the fear and uncertainty about what is going on out there. If you know that you want to get into the business and you're looking for the fastest way in, and you're looking at how do I connect into this business, because it's such a mystery and I'm wasting way too much time trying to figure this out on my own, well, then you can do our program. It's called Craft Certification, and I'm showing you exactly how to work in a word of mouth connection business. That's the whole thing that nobody understands, is how do you build a career in a connection-based business? But that is exactly what I teach you, and it is the most important thing, because once you get on these sets, you learn everything. You just got to get there. Most people can't even get there. So I'm showing you how to break in the door, how to get in the door consistently and being on film sets every single week, and then use being on film sets to move into a craft. So a lot of times people are trying to get into the craft right now when they're outside the business, and that's why it's not working. Now you have to actually do it the way that the film industry works. So the first step would be to sign up for the mini course, which is getting into the business, and then you'll be in our sphere, and then you can get exposed to the craft certification program if that is something that you want to do, and you can get into the business using that program. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. And if you want to take your career to the next level in the film industry, go to friendsinfilm.com/join. That's friendsinfilm.com/join. You can sign up for our mini course, learn about the A-list model, and then you can take it all the way and do the A-list program. So that's friendsinfilm.com/join. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day, everybody.